Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Wreckland Run, the newest game from Scott Alms and Renegade Games, the newest in their solo hero series. And this is going to be giving you a Mad Max post-apocalyptic survival racing game in which you're basically going through a 7-chapter campaign arc in which you're going to take one of these cars, one driver, and then try to survive. Going through various shenanigans as you steal this and take that and transport this, each of these chapters giving you a little bit of a different puzzle to go through, a little bit of modifications to the core game rules. Those core game rules are basically going to have you going through a little bit of a 3-round chapter, 3-round sequence in which in each round you're going to go through a wreckage phase, which despite what it sounds like has you actually building your car, not really wrecking things, but building out your car, adding more modules, more weapons, more ways to augment your survivability and general amount of damage you can do to the various cars that will be chasing you, because from there you'll move to the run phase, where depending on the chapter, the boss, all that stuff, the round, you're going to set up a variety of different cars that are chasing you down. This car over here, this is your central car. You're going to have a bunch of other cars that are slowly moving around trying to chase you, all culminating with this final chapter in which you'll also have the boss joining that fight. And your goal is to survive. Your goal is to stay alive long enough to actually take down that various boss who is trying to chase you down. Now, the bosses all have this little small impact in how easy it is to kill them, in the sense that whenever you have a boss in play, you can't actually hurt that boss unless they're on their own. Other drivers in the same zone, the same side of the car, are going to get in your way, trying to make it a little bit harder for you to kill them. The game sequence is going to involve, in both of the rounds, in the wreckage run, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and grab a bunch of these cars. We'll have many listed, and you're going to have all these cars that give you different ways you can modify your vehicle. You're going to roll dice and then use those dice. You're going to just go ahead and roll the pool of dice and then use all those dice, where's my last one over here, in order to go ahead and pay for those various mods. You can have this one over here, which requires 3 of the same type of dice. This one over here requires 2 of the same type of dice. You can have different variations in terms of either just requiring a set number of dice, requiring a total of dice, requiring a straight, a 1, 2, 3, 4, so to speak, or having the same dice. All these different modifications are going to have different requirements to get them, as well as the fact that you can use the dice that you actually have here and scrap. Scrap is going to be something you earn across the course of the game whenever you perfectly take down an enemy. Whenever you exactly deal enough damage to kill an enemy vehicle, you will earn that vehicle as scrap. Thematically, think of it as you didn't actually wreck it, you just stopped it from being able to do anything, and so you can still utilize it, as opposed to if you have overkill, if you deal 8 damage to a 6 damage vehicle, well, there's not much left to actually work with. So you're going to use your dice, you're going to use your scrap, you're going to combine those to modify your actual vehicle, to repair your vehicle, to get some of your vehicle's intrinsic upgrades. That's going to be your wreckage phase. From there, you're going to, like I said already, grab a bunch of cars and start setting them up around your vehicle as they start trying to figure out what they need to do to hurt you, as you go ahead and go through a sequence of run turns in which you'll roll dice, and then you're going to assign 1 red dice to activate a variety of enemies, and then using the white dice to activate your own modifications. So every single round, across 3 rounds, you're going to activate 1 red die, and then 1, 2, 3 white dice. The next round again, you're going to go ahead, so for instance, let's say we go ahead and activate this one over here. Let's take a 2, do we have a 2? We're going to take this 2, we activate this vehicle, they're going to go ahead and shoot at us, dealing damage to our modifications, and then they're going to move around the vehicle. So they're slowly moving and dancing around your car as you race through the post-apocalyptic wasteland. From there, I'll go ahead and assign a bunch of these to some of my various weapons. Ignore the fact that I'm not perfectly placing these. Let's go ahead and try to actually place them. I'll go ahead and deal a bunch of damage, shooting weapons from the side of my vehicles, potentially ramming my car into them, which has a huge impact. And then, again, take these remaining dice, roll them again, assign a red die, assign 1 to 3 white dice. Let's go ahead and assign this one over here. We're going to have that 5 activate. The 5 is going to shoot at us, deal some damage, and then rotate around. And then let's activate just 1 of these over here. Let's go ahead and just put this 3 over here, shooting to the vehicles, and then again, re-roll these and rinse and repeat. So once again, utilizing 3 rounds of assigning a red die, assigning 1 to 3 white dice in order to activate all your abilities. As far as what you're actually doing, well, the enemies are going to be shooting at you and then going clockwise around your vehicle. So you can see over here, there's 2 primary types of damage. There's going to be damage that deals damage to everything. So this over here is going to deal 1 damage to everything on the side of the vehicle, and this one over here is going to deal 3 damage to any one part of my choosing. Damage that does not hit parts is going to instead hit your core, which is the main way you die. If your core takes enough damage, you'll die, and your core, unlike the rest of your vehicle, cannot be healed. From there, the enemies are going to be dancing around, shooting, dancing, all that stuff. I don't know why I'm saying dancing. Driving around your vehicle as you try to activate your own weapons and modifications to do other things to them. Whether that's going to be helping to move them around, whether it's going to be helping to repair your own vehicle, or just straight up dealing damage to those vehicles to take them down, because the way you survive a run is by actually making it so that at the end of a run sequence, there are 2 or fewer enemies. At that point, those enemies will pull back, effectively being discarded as they wait for reinforcements, and then you'll go through another wreckage phase and another run phase. Additionally, you have this aspect of being able to ram enemies. When you ram enemies, which is an ongoing action you have in your core over here, you can go ahead and assign any value die to ram enemies, where you're just going to smash your vehicle into the side of them, dealing potential damage if you've built up these red edges around your vehicle, and then also, more importantly, dispersing those enemies to various sides. So ramming gives you a lot of board control as you figure out, hey, I have this strong weapon over here I want to use, but I can't currently use it. Well, if I smash this guy in the head and shove him over there, first of all, I'll go ahead and deal 2 damage to him, but also now I can go ahead and use my cannon or whatever it is, whatever weapon I want, and boom, shoot, them or whatever. You're also going to have your driver who has their own ability, you're going to have unique vehicles, and you're going to have a variety of unlocks as you go through these chapters, a variety of things that augment the enemy deck, that augment your own gear deck, that augment various extra abilities or different modifications, whether one time or ongoing, to the way any individual chapter plays out. And that's basically Wreckland Run. Try Wreckland Run. Try to go ahead and survive, try to figure out how to take out the boss, try to figure out how to not die across the course of the game. Which brings us to the review part of things, starting off with ease of play. The rules are a bit longer than I would think for this one. It's a fairly lengthy rule book, although it's fairly clear. It's fairly easy to go through, and it's also fairly easy to teach. And yes, despite being a solo game, I have taught this to others already, and so I can say it's an easy rule book to process, it's an easy rule book to teach. A few small nitpicks that were a little not as clear as I'd like could potentially be prototype issues, so we'll see how that plays out. Game table space is fairly minimal, and game length comes in at roughly 30 to 45 minutes. It depends how AP you're being in any given game. It depends how analysis paralysis prone you're being to overthinking your moves, which on the one hand you don't always need to be. On the other hand, some of the chapters are hard enough that you need to take your time with how you assign your dice for the enemies, for yourself, in order to ensure your survival. As far as player count, this is a 1-player game. I've played it as 1 player. That's all I've played it as. I have sat there and watched somebody else play as I taught them, but that's as far as that goes. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, overall, this is an optimization puzzle. This is a solo optimization puzzle that comes down to how you assign dice to yourself, that how you assign dice to enemies, how you build up your vehicle, how you manage that building up, which weapons will complement others, which ones will give you a wide variety of different dice numbers so you always have something you can activate. Are you focusing more on ramming? Are you focusing more on control? Are you focusing more on absolute damage? This is an optimization puzzle of figuring out how and what to place in such a way that you survive those 3 rounds, that you go through those 3 rounds, that you make your way to the next chapter, that you keep on dealing with the escalating challenges that are being provided with you, that you upgrade and augment your own vehicle, your own upgrades, your own drivers in order to figure out the best way to ultimately get through this challenge. And the campaign keeps it fresh. The campaign is the essential thing that keeps this game from being more than just rolling dice again and again and again. It gives you a reason to dive into the next scenario as you want to figure out what else is being unlocked, what new challenge is being thrown your way, what new upgrades are you getting, what new enemies are showing up in the enemy deck. There's a variety of things that will constantly escalate throughout the game, keeping the game system fresh, and that is an important part of this. And the variety gives you the choices and the reason to continuously dive back in what is otherwise a solid but fairly stagnant optimization puzzle. And the sense of survival and challenge that the game gives you is very much present. This is a solo game that has you coasting on that edge. If you act too quickly, you will simply lose. You will have a few bad die rolls, you'll have a few things that not go your way, and your core will take 8 damage and go boom. It depends on the vehicle. Different vehicles have different core strengths, but you will die if you're not careful. So you want to take your time. You want to figure out how to get those perfect moves. You want to have those turns where you manage to build up a good cycle of you cashing in 3 dice, of earning a scrap, using that scrap instantaneously, because when you kill these vehicles, when you get a perfect kill, you earn that die value on the side for yourself. You can now use that die value to activate your own gear, to activate your own weapons and modifications in order to hit someone else again. And having those turns where you cash in a sequence of cards one after the other and completely clear the board when you are on the brink of death, those are such satisfying moments in the game. As far as what I don't like, I touched upon this already when talking about what I do like, but to a certain extent, I wish there was more variety in the core system. I wish the enemies had more text, had more interesting abilities, other than simply dealing damage that's either direct or spread. That's really what the enemies have. There's not a lot of variety to the enemies you're going to be facing off, past some of them that do have some text abilities. But most of them are fairly similar. Same thing with the weapons and gear and modifications that you're adding to your vehicle. For the most part, they're going to be the same sequence of abilities again and again, just shifting up different numbers. This one activates up to 4, this one does 2 damage, this one does 1 damage, and if you have a perfect hit, it does 2 damage here. For the most part, small modifications amongst a small subset of abilities, making it so that the variety of each individual game of Wreckland Run is fairly similar. This goes back to the part where I said the campaign is essential to keep it fresh, because the core gameplay, while very much enjoyable, if not for the campaign giving you reasons to shift up the game state, it would be the kind of thing that I'd want to pull out infrequently, because frequently would just feel too samey game to game. Secondly, I'll say that the car can get a bit difficult to see. As you start layering damage onto these vehicles, it's going to be harder and harder to see what's going on, to see what dice activate. That's just a small price to pay in terms of the small board state, the small dice, the small everything in order to make this a very accessible package, but it does mean things can get fairly cluttered fairly quickly, and seeing what's going on can get just not that bad, but more obnoxious than it needs to be. As far as what I can see, others not liking, this game can be very AP prone, very analysis paralysis prone. Now, that's not that much of an issue because it is a solo game, but this is the kind of game where sometimes in order to survive, you need to stare at your board for a lengthy amount of time. The game does have difficulty levels as far as making it easier or harder. Speaking for myself, I prefer making it harder. I prefer starting the game with no scraps so I can actually have more of a challenge as I dive into it. But yes, that might come at the cost of me having to spend an extra 5 to 6 minutes figuring out how can I survive the fact that there's 4 cars staring at the back of my board, and I have no remaining modifications to protect my core, and I'm going to die if I'm not careful. So there definitely is a degree of AP that might be a problem for you as you go through the experience, unless of course you modulate difficulty to make it easier, but that might take away from the experience in different ways. And luck can be a big factor. Not a significant issue for me personally, but you can absolutely have times where you just roll poorly. Even to the fact that you have this aspect of when you don't activate vehicles. When you have red dice and there are no vehicles to activate, you instead assign them to a boss chart. And that boss chart can have varying degrees of just how bad that die is going to be for you. The difference between rolling a 1 when you randomly roll these red dice versus rolling a 6 can be chunks of damage to your core, and that could be something where you took a calculated risk, and it could be a calculated risk that doesn't pay off for you. There's a lot of mitigation in this game, but there are times where you just will have something bad happen to you. Whether it's the combination of cars that come out, whether it's the way the enemies activate it, whether it's the dice you roll, there can be a degree of luck in the game. And then lastly, post-campaign cleanup can be a bit annoying. Not tremendously problematic because we're talking about a post-campaign reset after 7 games, but it can be, 25 minutes of just resorting cards into the various envelopes, because each campaign does have its own envelope and there's a way to sort them, and things are being stuck in the deck game to game, so there is a bit of a post-campaign cleanup once you go through the 7 games and are ready to reset for your next run. As far as final thoughts on Wreckland Run, Wreckland Run is a lot of fun. It is a dice optimization puzzle in which you're trying to figure out how to maximize what you can do. You're trying to figure out how to survive. The game gives you a challenge of figuring out how to survive across those 7 chapters, of figuring out how to deal with different challenges that it throws at you, different ways of the bosses. I'm not going to spoil things for you, but they all give you different small extras or challenges or ways that the game presents a slightly new puzzle. At the same time, I think that puzzle and that variety is essential because the core game, while being very enjoyable, does suffer from a lot of repetitiveness as you go through round after round of rolling dice, roll, assign, try to stay alive, have enemy do damage. It's a fun puzzle, don't get me wrong, but it's the kind of thing that if it not for the variety of the campaign, it's the kind of game that I'd play it a few times and then come back to very infrequently. Overall, Wreckland Run is solidly enjoyable. I haven't had the chance of playing Warp's Edge yet from the same design team, but it's one that I definitely want to dive into, just given my experience with this one. I'm going to give this one a 4 to 5. Solidly enjoyable game, gives you a lot of fun things and a lot of optimization, but a little bit of repetitiveness at the same time. As far as other game recommendations, I'll start with Warp's Edge. While I have not played Warp's Edge, this is giving you that same optimization challenge, optimization puzzle of trying to figure out how to actually win given a set of, well, these kinds of constraints. And similarly, this game does feel very similar to Under Falling Skies for me. Under Falling Skies from CGE is going to give you that same idea of rolling dice, assigning them, rolling dice and assigning them, and similarly, that one also has a campaign, which likewise is essential to avoid having the same sequence of playing out every single time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said already, this one's currently on Kickstarter. This is a prototype review of Wreckland Run from Scott Alms and Renegade Games. As always, I hope you found this helpful, and until next time, have a good one.